Firstly, this is flipping amazing, dude. What you
Thank
have
you.
here, and I've been watching you on socials, and what's interesting is the experience from the outside versus the experience inside is completely different. And I've had the privilege of going to other podcasting studios, and I'm not just saying it because
You're here.
I'm here, but I really do sense there's a big distinction between what you do and what other podcasting studios do, and that is your the quality of your work, the quality of your setup, the quality of um, just the whole environment. It definitely shows. So I just want to say I just needed to put that out there.
Thank you, bro. I
Well
might
done,
just
dude.
clip that and put it on my Instagram.
Generally, I mean, it's such a big difference. Like what people think you see, Jesse Studios and actually coming in is very different, and you feel the quality. It's such a big difference. So well done to you, dude. I mean, I can tell this is your craft, and you do an exceptional job.
Thank you, bro.
So I thought, being a biokineticist, and but more so being a student of life, I thought what would be quite important to chat about today is pain, but not pain in the typical way of, oh, I hurt my knee, but the meaning of pain and what pain actually means. And I say this with the story of yesterday. I went out with a friend and we were chatting, and so she was saying she had this excruciating pain in her body, and she doesn't know where it comes from. And so, we sort of spoke, and we got to the idea that your pain is a pointer to something. There's a beautiful acronym that goes pay attention inward now. And that is the acronym for pain. And so when I have clients coming in, the way my mind thinks is, how do I get people to understand where their pain is pointing them to? Now, this could be physical or emotional. You recently you came in yesterday with, you had a bit of lower back stiffness, tightness. And what's quite interesting, people describe their pains very differently. Some people describe it as stiffness. Some people describe it as actual pain, sharp stabbing pain, or whatever the case is. And I wanted to know from your perspective, you in the game of looking after yourself, what has pain taught you, would you say?
In perfect relation to yesterday, it's 100% of you're not superhuman, because we all like to believe, oh, we don't have to stretch, we don't have to do the after exercise things that would help us recover. Because for myself, it's okay, put as much focus on the training as possible, then, which is silly and is detrimental to my progression, is not stretching afterwards, not looking after my recovery, be it even enough sleep. And that is an indication that I'm maybe overworking and not recovering enough, because then the pain comes in.
Yes.
So for myself, bodily pain in terms of like the situation with the tight back, tight hamstrings, that kind of stuff, is you can only push through that to a degree. And then eventually your body is just going to hit a wall. And then like now, I mean, I haven't run, almost tomorrow will be a week. So, and that's difficult for me, exceptionally difficult. But it's something where my body's like, well, you don't want to help us recover. We're going to make you suffer a little bit and torment you by being too sore to go for a run. So that for me, it's that you're not superhuman. You actually do need to focus on recovery just as much as you want to focus on the run or the training. Because for me, the recovery aspect, the stretching stuff, not as glamorous as the training.
Yeah.
So I put focus on the training, but then because there's less focus on the recovery, the training itself takes strain anyway.
Yeah. And what's the minutes, as you say, recovery and stretching, and I think again that's all pointers to something, and maybe even a pointer to a deeper thought of something needs to change. And that's what pain actually is. Pain is saying something needs to change, whether it is a mindset, whether it is a physical routine, but something needs to change. And the ability to have that self-awareness to know that something has to shift. And maybe it's as simple as, let me just make an appointment and get a bit of relief somewhere. And that's sometimes as going for massage, for example, and that creates the space for you to then say, okay, I'm feeling a bit better. Let me start to work on my core. Let me start to work on my stretching. Let's start to work on my mobility, whatever the case is. But with pain, I realize comes a level of, you have to be quite brutally honest with yourself. And with that comes a level of authenticity. And I say this because I was chatting to a client yesterday, and she said something so beautiful, dude. She said, Kaylin, if you love, and it sounds so like off topic, but it will make sense. She said, if you like a flower, you pluck the flower out of the ground and you put it in a vase and you put water in it and you nourish it in that way. But you said, if you love a flower, you're not going to want to pluck it out of the ground, and you're going to want to nourish it within its based on who it is, and not wanting to change it for what it is. And that got me thinking about what is love, and how love can be part of one's healing and one's pain journey, in that most times we want to pluck out I need to do this, my pain is there, I need to get rid of my pain. Sometimes your pain is there and you need to acknowledge the pain and maybe nourish that pain and say, okay, pain, what are you trying to show me? Instead of just plucking it out. And so, it made me realize that there's a level of authenticity that's required to realize that, okay, there is pain, and what is pain showing me? And almost like a friend, you want to welcome it as a friend and say, okay, what are you trying to show me? Which I thought was such a wonderful way just to bring it all together. Now, for you, speaking about authenticity, speaking about pain, and we get different types of pain, physical pain and emotional pain. And as a biokineticist, I don't just train the body. I believe that the mind is equally important. And the research has now shown 98% of our pain, 98% of our illness comes from stress, which is derived from the brain, which is mental stress. 98%, dude. That leaves 2% left for genetics, 1% left for genetics, and 1% left for your environment. That is insane. And so, based on being authentic and real, has there been any realization or pain that you had to go through where you had to start to change the way that you thought about life, that you thought about your body, that you thought about whatever it may be? But was there ever a time where pain forced you to change your perspective?
Yeah, and like even as simple as it hasn't been pain that would maybe be emotional pain, but it would be pain of the body that would then make me think, okay, as I mentioned earlier, you do need to take all things into account. So if we look at, that flower analogy, I was just trying to pluck all the beauty I could by just training. Pluck the flower, train, pluck the flower, train, and then eventually that flower dies because you've plucked it. You haven't watered it, you haven't nourished it. But then by maybe just leaving the flower there, appreciating it without destroying it, pulling it out of its roots, that's me then, okay, I love my body, I love my training, but to continue to be able to progress, I need to then add the stretching. So if I truly actually loved myself and really actually wanted to look after myself, I wouldn't pluck the flower. I would leave it. So then I'd implement the stretching, implement more sleep. We live in a society where it's just constantly hustle, money, grow. And we think that, okay, to hustle, you must sleep. You must wake up at 3, go to bed midnight, working all day, but no weekends off, that kind of stuff. But it's also to fire at 100. You can't be firing at 100 24/7. You fire at 100, but then you do need maybe a complete day or two off to then go back to firing at 100. So it's almost to then at the end of the week in a 7-day cycle be firing at 80
Yeah.
with 20% rest, as opposed to going 100 maybe for 2 weeks, and then there's like a 2-week period where you going at 0.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what happened to me now. Is I was always just trying to go to 100, go to 100, go to 100, no rest. Then you go to 0, as opposed to just saying, okay, let's put the training at 80, the recovery at 20, so that it's continuous and you can keep on going.
Yeah.
So it's also just, it boils down to self-respect and ego.
Yeah.
I think it also helps me realize that, it's the ego that makes me think that I can push through an injury or a niggle, which obviously you can't.
Yeah.
So you have to be real with yourself. And, I'm not a professional athlete. I don't have like the genetics that, professional athletes have, because they have superhuman genetics, most athletes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have to accept that I don't have those kind of genetics, because if I did, I would be there.
Yeah.
So you kind of just have to have the death of the ego and be like, I have to stretch, I have to recover. I actually do need sleep. I am human. I do crave nice food sometimes, so maybe I should allow myself don't put so much pressure on yourself. I think the pain that I felt by trying to overwork and overpush and just commit to everything then made me realize there's pain there. What's the pain? Look at the pain, analyze it. Okay, maybe you actually don't want that thing that you're working for. Maybe you actually aren't as special or good or gifted, whatever, as you think. Like, lower yourself, lower your ego, and be a little bit more realistic. Still have high goals, still have high expectations, but don't be so goal-driven that you overshoot and then injure yourself in the process, or overwork or stress yourself out, that you don't end up even getting close to the goal because you thought you could achieve it so much easier earlier. Or
100%. Flip. I mean, you said so much then. You touched on such amazing points. The first one that you mentioned was, you have to get to a point where you love yourself enough to recognize these things. And, it makes me think of a story. And this all happened yesterday, which is quite amazing. I had a client come in yesterday, and he had a hip replacement. And he's been struggling with this thing. Like, pain has been a big it's been weighing him down quite a bit. And so he got to this point where he realized that, why do I keep fighting this pain? Why do I keep, let me just accept the pain. And my question sort of connects to this is, so he says, why don't I just accept my pain? And the research has shown this: the minute you start to just accept pain, it significantly reduces your perception of pain. And by 25 to 30%, just accepting one's pain, not resisting one's pain. And so you mentioned that, you have to come to a point of loving oneself enough too. What does that mean for you? What does it mean to love oneself for you?
for me, I would say loving myself is the acceptance that I am flawed, the same way everyone else has, because I would have these expectations that I wasn't flawed, that I was special, that I was better than everybody else. And, you get to the realization that when you put that kind of pressure on you, it's, to your point that you just mentioned, is like, okay, I need to be perfect. I need to be good. I need to build this business. I need everything to go, 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 go.
Yeah.
Then you're putting all this pressure on you. Then when you don't maybe achieve that goal, you're like, why didn't I achieve that? What did I do wrong? So then it just builds, and it's like a snowball effect where it's the negative things to your unreal expectations. Whereas if that's a great goal, I'm going to work towards it. But if I don't get there, it's okay. I'm not saying it's okay if I don't get there, meaning that I'm going to allow myself to work less hard, but it's putting less pressure on it, because the moment you put the pressure and fixate on it, it's the same as people that give up smoking. If you're constantly thinking, I need to stop smoking, you're constantly thinking about smoking, which then makes you want to smoke more. It's the same. You kind of have to reframe how you question it, how you phrase it. So I was actually thinking the other day, it's not, you must just reframe. It's not, I want to stop eating sugar. You should rather just think, I want to eat healthy foods that can help me perform. So you're thinking along the lines of eat healthy foods to perform. Then when you don't, you're going against that. Whereas if it's, I don't want to eat sugar, that's just constantly thinking about the sugar.
Yeah.
Whereas I want to eat healthy foods, you're in that mindset of, okay, I'm eating healthy foods. When you maybe crave something else, then you're more aware of, okay, that's not what I'm thinking about. So maybe you'll stray away from it less.
Yeah.
oh, I don't have enough money. It's not, maybe don't phrase it like I don't have enough money. Maybe just say, I'm being smart with my money and making conscious decisions about saving. Instead of saying, oh, that's expensive. So I think it's just reframing how you think about it, because when you think about it in the lacking mindset, then you're more aware of the lack thereof.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's what you're speaking about is mindsets and the power of mindset and reframing, and being able to take, because you get the story of something and you get the reality of it. The reality is that maybe you don't have all the finances to do whatever it is that you want to do, but the story that we create is, oh, I'm not good enough because I don't have this, or I'm not competent enough, or I'm not worthy enough because I don't have this car. No, the reality is I don't have, and that's fine. You don't have to have. And I think
I don't want to interrupt, but it's also, I've found myself is, let's say you don't have it. Then it's thinking, actually, why do I even want it? Do I want it because I physically enjoy it, love it, and want it in my life and to be a part of my life? Or is it maybe because society looks up to people with nice cars? So maybe that's why I want a nice car. So maybe actually I don't need a nice car, because if I think society likes people with nice cars, then let's look at it. Okay, maybe I'm just looking for respect.
Yeah.
And there's easier ways to get respect than getting a nice car, because that's fleeting. So you can get respect by being charitable, being kind, being nice. Then you've got that respect, and you don't have to bankrupt yourself getting the car just to get the respect.
Yeah.
So I think it's also just, what do I actually want? And that's also something I had to really realize is, do you want this? Is that something you want? Or is it something that maybe you've seen on TV, you've seen people do that just looks exciting or looks fun or looks, and somewhat impressive?
Yeah. I mean, again, it comes down to that self-awareness of what is it that I want and why do I want it? And be honest with yourself, having the authenticity to say, listen, I want it because I do want to be viewed as more powerful and more this and that. And yes, maybe that is where you're at right now, but also realize that there's a bigger yearning within inside of you that's saying that I just want to be seen. And I think to some degree, that's always what it comes down to. And I have the luxury of having clients and patients come in, and when they tell you about their pain, all they're wanting to say is, can you just listen to me? Can you just hear me out? And I've developed the skill now of just listening and allow them to speak and allow them to be heard. And that in and of itself is a transformational tool for them, because at the end of the day, we all just want to be seen and heard now. With that being said, it's a daily struggle. Social media, you're looking at your friends and how well they're doing, for example, and they driving this and they going to these fancy restaurants. What do you do to sort of drown out the noise of the ego? Do you do anything specific, or is it self-talk that you get into? What are the things that you do to allow yourself to become grounded in who you are and not become overwhelmed by the expectations of society?
So I think also firstly, it's realize you're never going to get to a point where you aren't going to feel overwhelmed, where you aren't going to feel an inclination or a feeling that, okay, that car would be nice. Maybe it would be cool to have the car. Or maybe, why am I posting this photo on Instagram? Is it to be like no matter how much self-work you do, you're going to catch yourself in every instance. And actually, I think the more self-work you do, the more you do and are going to catch yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you're just doing things subconsciously, you're not thinking about it. So then you just do it, and then you don't think that there's a problem. Whereas the more self-work you do, the more you go into yourself, the more you realize, okay, why did I post that photo on Instagram? Why did I have to show people the restaurant I was at, and I had to show the logo or the name of the restaurant because I know people know it's an expensive restaurant? Like, why did I actually have to do that?
Yeah.
Why did I have to, when I posted the photo of my steering wheel, include the BMW signage in it? Like, why? Like, those kind of things is people subconsciously do that kind of thing, and they just think, no, I'm just posting a photo of my car. But there's a lot of things that we do that are actually for validation or for whatever purpose. So I think it's first initially realizing no matter how much self work you do, you're gonna find yourself doing those kind of things. But the self work that I do is every morning I'll do like the journaling. That for me has really helped, because it almost sets the tone for the day. And it sounds so cliche because we hear this all the time, but it genuinely helps me, be like, okay, you're gonna experience certain types of people that think differently than you. You can't get annoyed at them, because to expect someone to think the same as you is egotistical. Like, understand you're gonna encounter people that might frustrate you. Be more understanding.
Yeah.
Okay, you're gonna encounter this client that refuses to pay the invoice. Be patient.
And
Don't
is this
get
what you're
angry.
actually journaling? Are you actually
Yeah.
writing the stuff down?
Yeah. So
'Cause I think people don't actually know how to journal.
Yeah, so there's a book that it's an amazing book, The Daily Stoic. So every day there's a date, and then there's like a certain quote from like Marcus Aurelius, and there's like an explanation of it that applies and is applicable, obviously, to modern day life. I mean, all of it is applicable, but it puts it more into modern day terms. Then I'll write the quote, and then I'll just think about it while I'm having my coffee, and then maybe just go into it a little bit more. If it's something that makes me think about something else, I just write that something else. Then I just, as my mind goes, I kind of just write.
Yeah.
So if it's something silly, like make sure that, let's say from the previous day, I caught myself getting annoyed with a client. Then the next day when I'm journaling, I'll be like, yesterday you got a bit annoyed with this client. Maybe catch yourself a bit better or sooner. Don't allow your ego to get involved with business, like that kind of stuff. So if I realize something from the previous day, then I'll maybe just write it down. And I think that's the only real way that you can to progress like that, is the self-awareness of looking back at your mistakes
Yeah.
and being like, okay, I made mistakes. Like, yeah, every human does. To think that humans don't make mistakes, we see people on social media that don't make mistakes. Like, people make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Everyone has terrible thoughts. Accept it. It's okay. You're human. Doesn't make you a worse of a human. But if you ignore the mistakes that you make, maybe then you're a bad human.
Yeah.
Just try to be better.
So I can tell off the bat, you're definitely someone who gets a lot of insights and a lot of these inspirational moments in your life. Is there anything that you do? And I'm just curious now, like, I want to just pick your brain and see exactly where do you get your inspiration from. Is there a method? Is there a tool? Is there a routine that you normally do in order to get inspired or be inspired? Or does it just come naturally to you? How do you get inspired?
So I definitely need inspiration. Like, I'm naturally, I would say, actually a lazy person.
Really?
I would rather be chilling, just watching TV. If I knew that there would be money and enough money to live, and I could eat what I wanted and not get fat, like, I would do all of those things. Like, but I think most humans would actually. But if all your needs were taken care of, I'm pretty sure most people would just kick back and relax. I know there's lots of times where I'm like, okay, what's the easier thing here? What's the thing that the lazy person would do? Because that's probably the thing that I would choose to do. So I need motivation. I do need to reframe my mindset to get out of that laziness. But also, I think the more you start to do, the more building blocks that you have in the house of trying to build whatever you're trying to build, makes it easier to then be motivated, or not even motivated. It's just discipline. Sometimes you're not motivated. I don't feel like running in the cold this morning. I don't feel like getting up, taking my dogs for a walk. But it's also in that, like, in every instance, there's like micro instances. So if I think, I don't feel like taking my dogs for a walk, and I think, Jesse, look how excited these dogs are. How can you be so selfish to not take them for a 20-minute walk? This is like the best part of their day. Take them for a walk. Come on. What is 20 minutes off your day walking? You can wear 15 layers if it's cold. Just go walk the dogs. Look how excited they are. I really don't feel like meeting that friend. But they love seeing you. You actually, at the end of it, that you have enjoyed the time with them. So I think it's kind of reframing and trying to just look at things from a different perspective, other than just inside your own head of like, I don't feel like doing that.
Sure.
It's the same as gym. Everyone knows after gym they feel better. After the run they feel better. Obviously, it's very difficult maybe initially to start, but it's just circumvent the difficulty by looking at it at the end. A lot of times I do that when I'm running and I'm cold. I'll just picture in my mind being back home, having a shower, being warm, eating some food. And then I'm like, oh, this isn't that bad. In 40 minutes, I'm going to be home. That's like, what is 40 minutes? I can get there. I can do it. So let me just do this now, because I mean, if you look at when you're really cold or you're sick, let's say your nose is blocked. The perfect example is when this is how I feel. When your nose is really blocked and you can't breathe, you're like, yo, why did I take breathing why did I take for granted being able to breathe? It's the same thing where it's when you're cold, you're like, okay, well, it's cold, it sucks, it's difficult now, but I'm going to be able to be warm. I know this is not going to last forever. This is quick. And then you feel better afterwards.
100%. You touched on something quite amazing. You said, looking at your dogs, you look in the smell on the dogs, and that smell just got you motivated or inspired to take them for a walk. And Mother Teresa said it beautifully. She said, none of the greats did it for the many, they did it for the one. It's usually we usually do things for someone or for a collective, but it's usually not for us. Well, that's usually where most of our inspiration comes from. It's to help our loved one who is sick, and we're trying to figure out, how do we cure this? Or I need to be strong so I can carry on providing for my family, or whatever the case is. There was a research done, and it showed that 90% of elite athletes, particularly in the NBA, most of them did it or became the best version of themselves because of their grandmother. It was the grandmother that pushed them, or rather just them being there caused them to, get them to become their best selves. And I think, if you are feeling down and out, or if you do feel like you hit a bit of a wall, maybe you should stop thinking about yourself and think about someone else.
Do you get inspired or motivated, like, let's say, with clients that come in? Because obviously you could be dealing with athletes, you could be dealing with a mother who's got a job and kids and all of this, but she's still training. Maybe now she got an injury and she talks about her life, and it motivates you.
Yes, 100%. My dad used to say, God works through people and God uses people. And I believe that my biggest blessings have come through people, and I have the privilege of working with a lot of people. And so when people come through those doors and they open up and they chat and they share their hearts with me, it's almost as if I'm living a part of them in that moment. And so I get my inspiration from people. Yesterday alone, I've gotten so much insight just based on certain interactions. I mean, I'll give an example. I was at the gym with a guy yesterday, and we're gymming, and he says, Kaylin, most people have too much choice, he says. And I'm like, okay, carry on. And he says, sometimes you have to choose not to have too much choice. Don't give yourself too many options. When your back's against the wall, there's only one way forward. But he says, when you have too many options, that's when you become disorganized, you become distracted. And he says sometimes you have to choose to have less options. So that was a beautiful insight that I got there. Like I said yesterday, this lady said about the plucking out of the flowers. Again, another client yesterday told me that when he accepted his pain
reduced.
reduced. This is 3 insights in one day. Also, yesterday, a friend of mine, the same friend that I went out with, we were speaking, and I must be honest, I only went to bed at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And this is what was so interesting. Usually I'm in bed by 8 or 9, dude. And yet I woke up this morning and I felt fine. And I asked myself, why is it that I feel fine? And I realized, when you're doing the thing that you love, everyone says you need to get 8 hours of sleep. If you're needing to sleep because you need to cope for the next day, usually it means that the thing that you're doing is not the thing that you should be doing, because you don't need much sleep when you're inspired.
I do 100% agree with that. I say I get like on average 6 hours of sleep a night, and obviously I get tired, but it's more physically tired than sleep tired. Obviously my body gets tired from the training, but I wake up sometimes before my alarm, excited for the day.
Mm.
I'll wake up because normally I'll wake up at 4. I'll wake like this morning. I woke up 3:30, and I couldn't fall back to sleep. And I was like, oh, half an hour. What's an extra half an hour in the day? Like, let's go.
Yeah.
So I think also when you actually just enjoying what you're doing and you're working towards something that you feel joy and you feel purpose, your body does need to sleep a little bit less. I mean,
Yeah.
even if you look at training, when you don't train, you feel more tired. But when you're training, it's because you're more inspired, you're more driven, you're more all of these things, your body's functioning better. So I think it's even if it's in the mental realm of building a business or whatever, as opposed to training, when you're in that, your body is working on all cylinders when you're doing what you love because
100%.
you're driven by passion more as fueled by sleep.
Yeah. And so, I mean, just to sort of bring it to a close, but that is that's the way that I gain my inspiration is through people. I mean, just yesterday I've gained like 4 or 5 insights, and I truly believe like, if it's anything that anyone can take away, it is what Joseph Campbell says. What is your bliss? Are you following your bliss? What is that thing that truly gets you excited? And if you don't know what it is, then expose yourself to anything and everything, because something will hit and something will even it should hit. But you have to put yourself out there. And so for me, you have to have the you have to get up in the morning and get excited for something. And maybe that's a thought to think about for people, for the listeners, or for whoever is willing to listen, is what is that thing that gets you excited?
I
'Cause
think I think it's three things. So obviously you need one to make money, you need one as a creative outlet, and you need one as a physical outlet. So obviously, if you can, try do a job that you enjoy to make income. Two, some form of creative outlet, be it podcasting, be it painting, even if no one ever sees those paintings, just do something creative in some sort of creative manner. Then obviously the physical aspect, because we know how important physicality is. So I think it's
yes,
those three things should be all implemented into your day. Because let's say even if it's a job that you don't enjoy with making money, or even if you do enjoy it, there's going to be difficult times, because there's going to be times where you don't feel like going to work on a Monday morning. There's going to be times where it's difficult to save money. So that challenge that you face within that is a good thing.
yeah,
Then the creative outlet is sometimes you're going to suck at it. I know right now, if I had to go paint, I'm going to be terrible. But pushing through that and somehow using some more creative parts of my brain are going to be beneficial. Then the physical aspect is difficult as well. But then also the endorphins, the good feelings afterwards, and the benefits for your body by being more physical. So I think it's, finance, creative, fitness.
yeah. And for me, and I'm truly blessed in that. I think my work that I do is pretty much includes all of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, if you can find a job where like doing all three, incredible.
But I do think that we can all find that thing. I just think that a lot of times we are afraid, and also we have to redefine what does it mean to be financially okay. Like you can get away with a lot less than what we think. But we then have to get rid of the ego and realize I don't need the fancy this, I don't need the fancy that. And then when you start to follow your purpose and your bliss, because what it comes down to is, what is the purpose of life? Is the purpose of life to drive that fancy car? Or is the purpose of life to express oneself in all that you can be? And that's an insight that I got a couple of years ago. I was doing a hike, and I just kept asking the question, what is our purpose? What is our purpose? And almost like a download, what came to me was, our purpose is to love. However, we don't give ourselves permission to love. Another way to say it is, our purpose is to express ourselves, but we don't give ourselves permission to express, because we think, oh, I need to first have this, or I first have to be there, or I first have to accumulate this. No, to express oneself is just to be. It's not a journey, it's a state of nowness. Can you just be now? And that's you expressing oneself. And so sometimes I think we take it too far out, when the only thing left to do is just to be, to live, and to continue to express oneself. And there lies, I think, the beauty of life, is when you realize there's nothing left to do. I just have to continue to live. and there's a scripture in the Bible that says that if the birds of the air can be taken care of, they've been provided food for. Surely, that could be the same for you. And what does it mean? It means surrender to the idea of, surrender to the ego of, I need to accumulate, I need to. Sometimes you just have to be. And I know that's very difficult when you have financial troubles, or when in a bit of a financial tiff, but maybe that's a pointer to something.
And I think it's also, so let's look at, I literally had this thought this morning. So with my studio expanding, it's not about, okay, I can't wait until everything's ready so that I can be making more money. It's have a business goal. Like that doesn't mean you can't have a business goal by being present and realizing that you can actually achieve, or be okay with less and survive. Because we all know. As that scripture almost is saying, like the birds, the animals, whatever, everything is provided for them. We also don't need all those materialistic things to live a flourishing life. Like everything we need is actually, because people have lived for countless years before us on whatever's been provided, as opposed to the new iPhone or the new this or the new that. Like everything that we need is actually of the earth to survive. Especially meat. We should eat meat. I was trying to think, but where I was going with that is,
we just lost 10 people who were vegan.
That's my view. I'm not talking about Kaylin's view. So it's enjoy the process of building the studio. Enjoy the creativity of trying to find what set would look nice. It's not, I can't wait until this business is a massive success. It will be a success right now if you believe it is a success, because just being and enjoying right now makes it a success, because you're a failure if you feel like you'll never be a success. Whereas if you just surrender, as you mentioned, and just accept, like, I am a success right now if I believe myself to be a success, and realize that I don't need everything this world has to offer materialistically. Like I can be a success right now.
100%. It's falling in love with the process. Because that's all we have anyway.
Yeah, because once you get to the end goal, you're not actually at the end goal. You're just thinking about it in the next end goal. Like every journey, until maybe you're dead, obviously, is the journey.
Yes, and that's such a mind shift, because when you realize that the process, and you mention it, like it doesn't mean that you can't have ambitions, you can't have goals, but what it means is, and I never really understood this until I spoke to clients of mine. And the one guy, very elderly gentleman, he said to me, he says, Kaylin, you don't realize that the struggle is what's actually the most enjoyed part of the journey. What he's trying to say is, when you get to the destination and you look back retrospectively, you sort of realize, flip, I liked when I was in the grind, when I was grinding. I liked when there was a bit of tension, and it wasn't always as easy as what it is now. And what he was saying is, it's about the process, and we're all in the process.
And it's always constantly a process.
Yes.
And that's what life is. And it needs to just be a process that you enjoy doing, because there's no end goal of life, Like, yes, obviously, in terms of like religious beliefs and those kind of things, obviously, regardless of the religion, well, certain religions maybe don't believe in like an afterlife, but let's say the religions that do, obviously the afterlife would then be the end goal. But that's the process. If you look at it like religion, if you look at daily life like religion, it's okay, I'm living a certain way, but still being present enough. But this is I guess that doesn't really make sense, because there's still an end goal.
Yeah.
But to get to that end goal, you almost have to be present in what you're doing.
Yes.
So in life, there's no actual end goal if you look at it in the sense of goals. We all know you have a fitness goal, you have a business goal, you have whatever, you achieve it. It's like for 1 second you're happy, then it's what's next. Yes. So you're going to constantly be living a life of what's next. If you don't just be like, set those goals, cool, but be here now, because all we have is right now.
That's all you
literally have. Or like the past does not exist. Yes, it happened, but it does not exist because you can't go there. You can't get anything from it other than maybe things that And that's also the thing I think, I don't know, I could be wrong, is yes, like something traumatic happened in the past, but that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist. It only exists now because you've kept it. Like I understand certain things are difficult to let go of, but
still,
you're
you
making it
still
exist.
hold
You're
on to
making
it.
it exist. Like, yes, I understand there's different levels to healing and all of that, but you're making it exist. That time that I broke my leg and I'm too scared to go do whatever, that doesn't exist anymore because you can't go back there. The memories are maybe what you're allowing to ruminate around now. Like that doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. So like worrying about the future, because all of our worries, life can go in 50,000 million directions, and then you have to worry about every single possible outcome in whatever reality that it could go. And like, I mean, what is worrying like that going to help? Because how unpredictable is life actually? I mean, if I asked you 2 years ago where you'd be in 2 years, like you would think completely differently.
Yes. And yeah, I think, the illusion of goals, I think we've been taught this. Yes, goal setting to some degree. I think we overhype goal setting because, we think when I get there, then I will become. And I think what the narrative that needs to change is the ability to fall in love with the now, with the process of being and becoming. And becoming is the process, and more so maybe being more specific with who you want to be than what you want to accumulate. So, for example, in the next 5 years, I want to have 10 million. How about think about who is it that you want to be in the next 5 years as a person, your personality, your characteristics, your morals, your ethics, and I think that's quite important. But at the end of the day, if there's a call to action for people, it'll be to start to fall in love with the journey, with the process, because the end is never, there is never an end. That's just an illusion. And so the only thing left to do is just to be.